everyone. Welcome to Webcology on WMR.fm. It's the 29th of June, 2023. It's the beginning of summer, and as always goes, summer's almost over. So if you got the chance, get out and enjoy it. This is Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media, Kristine Schachinger from Sites Without Walls, and we're joined today by one of the industry's, you know how like you have an industry's expert's expert? Alan is the expert's expert on analytics, Google Analytics, Search Console, and the widening array of ways to measure traffic and user intent across your website. And if you didn't know, tomorrow is Analyticgedon Day, the day that Google Analytics, or I should say Universal Analytics, UA3 shuts down. Stops recording new data. Some of your data may still be available to you, and shifts over to GA4, Google Analytics 4, a new and, well, you know what, maybe improved, depending how you use it, way of dealing with user information. But we're going to get to that when we talk to Alan in a few minutes. Kristine, it's been a busy week, and the odds are the fight's still on.
It supposedly is, although I won't tell people what fight we're talking about.
Well, the only fight that matters, of course, the cage match between Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk. I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe, Elon Musk, for whatever reason, challenged Mark Zuckerberg to a cage match, and Zuckerberg accepted. Musk's mom tried to argue him out of it. But
that was a funny
work.
Twitter thread. She said put a stop to it basically on Twitter, and he's like, "Mom, I'm fighting." Like, case 5.
So these two are going to be meeting behind the football field somewhere in Las Vegas after school, and they're going to duke it out in a cage match, hopefully on pay-per-view. And yeah, this is and the stupid thing is, this is 2023, so this is for real.
This is for real. Yeah, and the funny thing is, Musk did some impromptu martial arts training this week with maybe the same trainer that Zuckerberg has. But Zuckerberg has been training, what, 18 months, I think, when we covered it last week, and he already competes in MMA fights and has been winning. So I'm sure 1 or 2 sessions with a jiu-jitsu guy will make you comparable.
This is going to be just like that time when he started like crap bragging about how he was going to buy a social network for a stupid, absurd amount of money, and then ended up having to buy that social network.
But he also tried to get out of it. Let's not forget that one.
Well, indeed, but you know what? That was his mom. His mom comes in, tries to get him out of it. History's repeating itself, and this time he advocates for himself. Person with his own lawyer has a fool for a client, I hear. He advocates for his own self and says, "No, Mom, it's on." So
I think it's funny that the way the training came about is the trainer tweeted Musk. So he put out a post after. It said he did an impromptu training session with Elon Musk for a few hours. He was extremely impressed with his strength, power, and skill on the feet and on the ground. It was epic.
Yeah, and that's why you see that trainer. That's why you see that trainer running down and putting his money down on Zuckerberg.
Yeah, he even tweeted pictures of himself like doing a hold. It's like, come on. I take in a couple martial arts, and granted they're all different, and the learning curve is all different. But a couple sessions is not going to compare to the 18 months and actual fighting matches that Zuckerberg has done.
Anyway, this is 2023, and in this bizarre timeline, this is real. So, okay, here's another thing that's kind of bizarre and kind of real and kind of, I don't like this at all. Microsoft wants to bring Windows 11, the operating system itself, into the cloud. What do you think about them apples?
I think it's a bad idea, but you know, back in the day when they first started putting everything in the cloud, I was like, wrote an article like, "Hey folks, this is how they're going to wind up charging you lots and lots of money to use their products, and you'll never be able to get away from it." And that kind of feels like another step in that direction. I don't know that it is, but it feels like it is. But I would not put my whole operating system in the cloud. I would want my computer to be able to operate on the software that's literally on the computer, not And that's what actually what.
The irony is, about 20 plus years ago, I was at a conference and I wrote an article about this, of where this was the future for software. It was all going to be cloud-based. And that all stemmed from more than 25 years ago, probably close to 3 years, when, if you remember, good old Bill Gates came out and said, private networks are the thing. Then he realized the internet was the thing and had to switch the whole company around. And even then he was hinting at moving everything online once network speed was up to it. So self-fulfilling prophecy.
In some ways, it's really efficient having like the software online. I think of a whole bunch of software as a service applications I use now that are totally in the cloud, but the operating system itself, that's like the brains, the guts, the heart of your computer is suddenly in the cloud.
Think of it this way: I'm a person who doesn't make a lot of money, and maybe I'm a little unemployed, and I need my computer. I can't pay for 360; it's in the cloud. 365. I can't pay for it; it's in the cloud. I can't operate literally my computer. Like that's how silly that is. So I and it's not the first one it's done. I mean, Google Chromebooks is a cloud-based computing system.
Exactly.
But I wrote articles then about people not going to that, and it didn't seem to take off. So Microsoft, I guess, might think this is going to take off because of streaming and stuff. Maybe younger generations, I think, won't care about having an operating system in the cloud. But I'd warn anybody about doing that, just because we all go through ups and downs financially, and not being able to access your computer because you can't pay for the operating system that's in the cloud would probably be very detrimental for a country where most people don't have money to pay for an emergency bill.
Right. Well, I just think of the vast majority out there, not the people who actually have their PC, but who live just on their cell phones. Yes, a cell phone has an operating system on it. So, and you're accessing all these apps and everything else, which is all cloud-based.
Yeah, but that's different than your livelihood being on a computer.
But it is an interesting proposition. But I agree with you. I think it's a bad decision to put the OS up there. I'm also thinking about you, Kristine, Jim, myself. We live in major urban centers where rarely does our internet go down for extended period of times.
True.
But what my laptop has a battery. I have a UPS, so if the power goes up, fine. But what happens if you have some work that has to be done and the internet goes down? I've seen businesses have to lock their doors because they can't take credit card payments because the internet is down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very true. Very true. It sounds like, yeah, go ahead.
It's just something that scares me. Yes. And I still like having, and what about, I'm on the plane. I want to do some work on my laptop. I don't want to necessarily have internet on the plane. I don't want to pay for that high cost. So there's a lot of issues I don't think they've worked their way through.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Like
But anyway, this is from an internal document, so this isn't
not done
out
yet.
there yet. But this is something that they're definitely talking about at in Microsoft. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. It may or may not be this may or may not be an actual story, but it's something that's certainly being talked about. Here's one that's kind of weird. We've been talking a lot about, obviously we've been talking for the last, 18 months, 24 months about AI and more AI. And, we talked about good stuff about it and dangerous stuff about it, including AI's propensity for filling in the blanks with information it thinks should be there, but isn't necessarily true. Bing is saying that its AI, its version of ChatGPT is strong enough and powerful enough and accurate enough to start predicting stocks.
Yeah, although it says it's not a stock price prediction system, so it's kind of fun. It's like,
it's
we're
like,
not really predicting.
The modern equivalent of a shoeshine boy giving you stock tips.
Remember when they did the pricing on the airline, and you could the website where you could see if it's likely to go up or down? Mm-hmm. I think it's probably a similar concept, but I would not. It's dangerous territory, right? People are gonna make financial decisions based on your predictor. Well, if your predictor is wrong and you're like, well, it's not really a prediction system. I don't know if that holds up in court or not, if someone loses a whole bunch of money based on it, but we'll
Oh, I don't
see.
know. I'm pretty sure the 270-page end user license agreement will cover it.
I think it's dangerous territory. I think that there are things that everyone's all like, there's parts of companies like AI, and I'm sure there's somebody in there going, this is really not a good idea, and they're not being listened to because this is really not a good idea, in my opinion.
I don't honestly know enough about how this would work in practice, but I do know that if everybody is getting the exact same advice and doing the exact same things, the walk to the system would be substantial.
Can you imagine
Yeah.
if it like got it wrong? I'm sorry, Alan. I don't even show.
So no, but I'm going to say
it
the
got it-
general premise is how all the AI is. It would be just harvesting all the pundits' opinions on what stocks are going to go up and go down today, and then consolidate them and extrapolate them with some statistics and say, here's our prediction for today. And now I know where you're going, Kristine. And that is just like saying, this stock's going to go up today by 5%. And if everybody moves their money to it, it's going to go up more than 5%. So it could become a self-fulfilling prophecy for good and for bad.
Yeah, it definitely could cause a whole lot of problems. I think it's dangerous territory for thing to be going into, but we'll see.
I mean, good Lord, people get weird about vote tabulation machines and how that might weird out the system. Imagine what AI predicting stocks and giving on mass advice every morning to people might do.
Oh yeah, which kind of leads real quick into our other story about Harvard. If we want to jump there for a moment.
Well, this one actually really interests me. This is the weird one. Your introductory computer science teacher, if you go to Harvard next year and take computer science 50, introduction to computer science, might be a bot. You might be being taught by a large language model, GPT-4. But yeah, I'm not sure what the TAs would be like or what dinner at the professor's place would be like.
Yeah, and I think there is an actual like professor who's monitoring the class. But I mean, if I'm paying $50,000 a year for a year of Harvard, I think it's something around there. I don't know how happy I'd be that my kid was given a bot to like, work with. Also, these bots are not always accurate, but when you're in college, you're there so you can ask the professor questions, you can work out your reasoning, you can understand why you're doing something. You don't get that with a chatbot. I don't care how sophisticated it is. So I think it's a really bad move, and especially by Harvard. Like it just looks cheap on Harvard's, choice. But it's one professor, I believe. I don't believe it's an institution. But since they do hallucinate information, how will the student know? They won't. They don't have a professor there that's actually guiding them on particular information they're getting from the bot at that time. So I just think
you assume that professors are accurate, and I had professors who made mistakes when I went to university. And you take one course next year, you'd get a different professor who would contradict the first professor. So let's not assume professors are perfect and not knowledgeable either. A lot of them read the textbook just ahead of time.
Indeed. Could you imagine a university? Could you imagine university level SEO professors?
Well, the one safe thing we have is there's always a black box with SEO. But no, I find that it's detrimental to the learning process. You might as well just take the course online from a community college then.
Well, again, it may well be detrimental to the learning process, but it's also probably indicative of where much of the learning process is going in the future. It's hard to get teachers to do a thankless job these days, eh?
Well, professors at Harvard aren't teachers doing a thankless job. They're well-paid people and get a lot of prestige and privilege. So, yeah. So
one would hope, indeed.
High school is different, but public school is different. But $50,000 a year universities aren't the same. So, but it's just one professor right now. We'll see what happens. Harvard will probably get a lot of blowback, I imagine, from their actual people paying their tuitions. We'll see what happens.
Okay, a couple quick house cleaning things. Almost out of time for Brighton SEO USA free tickets. If you're interested in them, go to the website, apply now. Don't apply next week. Go now. Because I actually think it closes this week, tomorrow, in fact. Speaking of stuff that closes tomorrow, I don't know if you guys have noticed or not, but when you've been logging into Google Universal Analytics, you've been getting this very subtle notice from Google. Just to update, one day, 13 hours, and what, like 40 some odd minutes from the time of recording, and Google or Universal Analytics, as you know it, is going to stop recording. Google Analytics 4 will start recording. For some reason, a number of people in the SEO world just noticed this, and I've seen forums, people are in near panic about ARMA or Analyticgedon Day, which is now. So we brought in Alan Knack, who is, as I said before, the search marketing industry's expert in analytics. Alan's company, Connectology, works with large and small businesses. And quick disclosure, Alan used to be a partner in Digital Always Media, my business. So Alan, welcome to Webcology. And what's the impact of Universal Analytics 3 shutting down tomorrow?
Well, Kristine and I have been having an interesting conversation the past few days, going back and forth. Anyways, so for those who paid attention to all the notices that Google's been sending out for the past about 18 months and really picked up about a year ago, there's no impact because they've been running GA4 in parallel with their Universal Analytics and have figured out all the changes in how one relates to the other. And we have a nice, metrics that X visitors in your Universal Analytics is equal to this Y visitors in GA4. The problem happened where everybody kept kicking the can down the road saying, oh, this is BS. Google's not going to turn things off on June 30th, 2023. No way they can do it. This is too many people are using this product, blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, oh, 6 months. No, they're going to postpone it because not enough people have migrated over. I was hearing people a month ago, do I really have to do this? I said, you should have done it already. And I've been swamped helping companies, do their migrations over. And now, and I've been posting about it, and people are in disbelief that Google's going through with it. So I'm sorry. This would be like, we were talking about Microsoft and the operating system. Can you imagine you're still running a Windows 95 machine? And you are now upset because no browsers work on it? There are deadlines for software, and sorry, that's the reality is you've had ample warning, and you either upgraded to GA4 or you switch products.
So why this deadline? Why tomorrow? And why does Google have to make this switch?
Well, there's a couple reasons. One of them is a $1 billion fine pending from the EU for privacy breaches of the GDPR law. Google came to a compromise with them about how Universal Analytics worked, that they had a period of time to stop using it because it was collecting data that was in breach of the GDPR, and they had till the end of the year to purge all that data. So that is factor one. The EU is not going to change their, pending fine against Google. Number two, and I've had conversations with a lot of people, it's my personal opinion, is all this data that's been stored under Universal Analytics, because we all put our switch to hold the data indefinitely, is costing Google a fortune. And every division within, Google, whatever, the Alphabet group, is now essentially a profit center. Analytics, since they don't make money by selling software other than their paid version, and is all that data stored on the Google Cloud, has to pay for that data. So they have to reduce their cost of data storage. It's that plain, that simple.
Okay, so users of Universal Analytics, and this is a product that's been in use for a decade and a half, almost 2 decades now.
No, Universal Analytics, I just actually writing an article on that one, came out in 2012.
2012. Okay, so it's been in
Uh,
use for
Well, there was
13
Google another
years.
version before that, yeah.
okay. There was another
Right, which
Google
was
Analytics.
completely, was night and day between
Really?
the current version. So I heard all the same complaints when what was just simply called Google Analytics, which was really
Yeah.
Google Analytics 2, and UA, I heard the complaints. The interface sucks. I can't find anything. Oh, my sessions and my visitor counts don't match up. Why? This is horrible.
You know, Alan, I got to tell you, I feel kind of foolish. I feel like the Facebook user who gets all freaked out and bent out of shape that the interface has changed, only to 3 years later to go, what it was what?
I
Exactly.
don't think that. I don't think that's quite accurate in this
Yeah,
case.
again, this is a
Yeah.
radical, like Kristine's trying to. This is a radical change.
It requires you
Hey,
to use
I got
another
upset.
program to use it. So
I got
if it
upset
requires
when
another,
yeah, we all got upset. Windows users with Windows 11 came out when they moved the little box from the left corner to the center, and
But
you can't
again,
find the
this is-
turn-off button. Like, come on.
This is quite different. This
This
is,
is more than moving the little
yeah,
box. This
the
is like
client,
renaming entire classes of analytics.
and then dropping data and then requiring a third-party tool to actually make any sense of what they put out there. So it is a big difference. And I think that
Yeah.
a lot of the people in the industry that are upset about it are very experienced SEOs and SEMs who have been through this before and are not just because they don't like that there's changes, that it just doesn't function for them.
I've seen this with, hey, I remember some years ago, major changes in the Photoshop user interface where you couldn't find where features were hidden because they got renamed and regrouped. I've worked with so many software in my lifetime that between iterations, not just, going from version 4 to 4.1, but going from version 4 to version 5, it's completely revamped. Word, if you would go back to Word from 12 years ago, it has no resemblance to the current Word.
But the functions are still there. I can still bold, I can still make margins.
No, but there's okay, show me reveal codes. Show me other editing functions.
The P is still there. The P is still there.
Yeah, but you can't find them. And I'll tell you the same thing is with GA4. Stuff is there. They are just not where you expect them. And some things do work differently.
Okay, so let's go and look at some of the similarities between Universal Analytics 3 and GA4. I'm really interested in acquisition, source and medium. And I want to compare Google organic against obviously all the organic search engines and, other forms of traffic too. I'm curious how it's reacting against cost per click. Am I working with the PPC folks in harmony, or is it, is one surging forward over the other? There's a number of analytics I want to get that I have to reach for in GA4. Are they, if I had been somebody who got on it 16 months ago, would it be much easier for me now? Would it be just a matter of, is that same data there?
The answer is, it's not exactly the same data, because one of the major changes, which people don't understand, this was one of the big differences between when it became Google Analytics and Universal Analytics, is how Google identifies unique users and how it calculates sessions. There has been a major change in those two key measurement points for the purpose of being far more accurate. And I'll start with bounce rate. I wrote an article like 6 years ago, why bounce rate should be removed from analytics. I think Google read my article because it was meaningless. It was a single page visit. We didn't know how long a person spent on it. Was there any interaction? They're gone. So now Google says, well, we'll report single page visits, but we'll talk about engagement, because we are now going to have a timer running that says an engaged session is someone who's been on the landing page for at least 10 seconds, or has started scrolling, or has done another trackable event, such as click to another page. So now you have an engagement factor far more accurate than unengaged. And so same thing with sessions. We all, there's all the fear of cookies for far too long. And everyone complained about Google cookies. Well, now Google has added something called Google Signals to help better identify unique users. And there's all sorts of other factors that they're hiding in the background to be more accurate on your unique user count. So that will affect your traffic from organic search. Also, Google has improved its definition of organic search. It's added more search engines that used to not actually. So some of these small, I've never heard of search engines are now showing up as organic search. So there's an enhancement there.
So they don't separate them out anymore, though, right? They lump them all
No,
together.
they're there. You can still see what the source is. It's there.
Yeah, there's a drop down you can ask for a source medium from. It's not by default anymore, though.
Yeah, everything
it's
is
not
set
part
up.
of the.
That's the worst
It's
part
set
about all
up.
of it.
You just need to know what as well as if you're a PPC person, Facebook ads used to show up as paid search unless you created a custom channel. Well, now GA4 has a paid social. So if you're running PPC, you're going to see a drop in paid search, but you'll have an increase in paid social. Same thing, they better define what organic social traffic is. And they have, I believe it's approximately now 25 channels, where before they had about 12. So you're going to see a lot. So where things were grouped before are going to be grouped elsewhere. So that is a change. And for attribution management, Google is now giving you 2 channel acquisition reports. There's user acquisition, what brought the user the first time to your site, what channel. And then there's the session, what brought them for that specific session. So you can see from a PPC ad that I have, that's brought the user to the first time, but then maybe they came direct, or maybe they came through organic search and converted at a later date. So you now have 2 sources of traffic to look at. So you're actually getting more information. Yes, it can be confusing, but by having those 2 sources, you start getting a greater understanding. But this is one of the problems, and I will acknowledge this, but there's no workaround. This is why I wanted people to get on their GA4 long ago. If I ran an ad campaign last month, but I just turned on GA4 today, and somebody came through that PPC ad and bookmarked it or whatever, and now comes directly to your site because they now decided they're going to make that purchase, everybody's coming in direct. So all your regular users are going to be, user acquisition is direct because they know about you, because they're not using search. They're not clicking through a PPC ad. So that is part of why you wanted a nice lead time, which, sorry, it's too late now to get that.
Google Analytics 4 gives you a lot of ability to set metrics, to tell it what you want to know. Is there a way to compensate for, I guess, lost time by accuracy of settings?
I look at it, one of the rules I've been explaining to my clients is it's that the old adage of 80-20. Google looked at it and said 80% of the users were using 20% of the features. So they got rid of 80% of the features. So now you're getting essentially a bare bones system, but they put in a completely customizable interface. Now, is it going to take some time to learn how to use their library function and create custom reports to regenerate reports that you liked in Universal Analytics that Google said almost nobody used? Yes, it's going to take. Did I like how, Google Universal Analytics had an area called behavior? Is that really what I like that section of reports to be called? No, but if you like behavior, you can go rename that section behavior and rearrange all your reports. You can get, if you're not an e-commerce site, why do you care about the monetization reports? Remove them from your screen. So with a little bit of either looking at some YouTube videos, reading some articles, taking a course on the upgrade, all of a sudden you can have a customized interface that is shared within your entire group of only reports that have meaning to your organization. Yes, that's going to take time, but just think how much time people spend hunting and pecking through reports and playing with them to get it. I need to add this segment. I need to add these drill downs, build the report. It's there, and now you have
Yep.
efficiencies in it.
You
know.
do, though, as someone who knows how to do this stuff, or the regular person, regular client, they're not going to be able to do any of that. They're just
Well,
not. And then like I'm looking, like in setting up like demographics for automatic. They're not even automatic anymore. You have to set up your demographics. You have to set up your.
They actually weren't automatic even in Universal Analytics. There was something in the setup that you had to turn on. So most people
Right, but now you have
turned it
to
on.
define. You have to define everything. Like
That's your audience. No, you just have to give permission to record that and ensure, and this is the big caveat that most people don't realize, privacy laws worldwide, you have to acknowledge before you turn on what's called Google Signals, where they put in all those demographic information. So that's something you have to enable. It's not, you have to first of all tell Google, yes, I have a privacy policy, and my privacy policy acknowledges that we are recording this information for analytics purposes, blah, 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 blah. That was something that Google was in breach of in laws, and not just in the EU, but actually here in Canada. So yes, you have to go through a couple of 4 clicks to enable it, but reviewing your privacy policy on your website is something every organization should do, because especially in the United States, which is lots of lawsuits, all it would take is for you to identify some users and somebody getting offended by it and launching a lawsuit against you. And if you don't have it in your privacy policy, you lose. So
no, that's all very important. No, I'm not. Yeah, that's very important. I just mean that there's nothing about G4 that is intuitive or easy unless you have a data analyst or someone like you who works with it all the time. So it's going to be very difficult for regular people, regular clients, regular customers to use it. If you're not a large company that has people that already know how to do all this, they're just not going to use it. They're going to migrate away.
Well,
they'll have it turned on for ads, but I don't see them using it otherwise.
Look, I'll agree with you on that one, but I'll tell you, most small businesses never even look at their analytics reports. That's
the ones
reality.
I work with. The ones I work with do.
What are they looking at? How much traffic I have? Looking at data out of context, looking at meaningless factors, but it was easy to use. Well, those basic data is there. I click on my report, I get my snapshot, my dashboard, boom, that's all I care about. Is traffic up or down yesterday?
As someone who designed websites for a living for a while in UI UX, we can agree that it is not a good UI UX, right?
No, I'll agree. The UI is atrocious. Yeah. This is probably the worst software rollout I've seen in over 25 years of being in this industry.
That's my point. That's my only point.
I am not going to argue that point. This has been an absolutely horrible. Yeah. I've talked to other people who are not analytics people, who from everything from web development to SEOs to PPC specialists to servermen, they've never seen something so poorly rolled out with explaining why it is being done than this particular rollout. It's, hi, you have to switch. Too bad. But that's not telling me, here are your enhancements. No, if you go and dig enough, or if you're in about 24 companies that are senior analytics partners with Google who got invited to special events where all the details were explained, and then they were sent out to be advocates for the product. And I'd say 98% of those people said, haha, I have inside information. I'm not going to share it. This is good for my business.
Google knows to give it to the SEOs because we tell everybody. See, that's where they messed up.
But no, they gave it to their analytics, the people who go out and sell Google 360 and mega amounts.
Yeah.
All right. I know a few of these people, and a few of them I've talked to were at those meetings. They said, I can't believe nobody's sharing this. Like this, are you sharing it? Well, I wrote an article. I'm sharing with people I know. You're not being an advocate for a product and telling them, helping people, because you're being greedy, saying, if I know this inside information and how to do X and nobody else does, I have a market advantage. So part of Google's stupidity was only rolling it out to a select few and giving them the inside knowledge on why these changes were happening, and then letting the rumor mill spill out, or people doing some research to get more details on What's the difference between user tracking versus event tracking? Night and day. Adobe's been doing event tracking for about 10 years now. So they're going after the Adobe market. It's that simple, but it's,
I think one of the other mistakes Google made in this rollout was, as they were doing their countdown over the last month, there was a little red bar that appeared across the top of Google Universal Analytics screens that said in part, if you don't do anything, we'll do it for you. I think a lot of people are sitting around waiting for Google to do it for them.
Right.
And
And
Google,
they don't actually
Google
do it.
started rolling that out this week, or was it last week? Even though I had clients we migrated over, Google, one of the other part of the bad rollout, Google kept adding new, I don't want to call them features, but new checkpoints that as a consultant or as a user, you had to go and check that you did this, you did this. But I already had it up and running and everything was working perfectly. I didn't go back and check their migration assistant and check every box that they added in 6 months later. And so you start getting all these messages.
You had clients a couple months ago. You signed off on them, moved on to your next client, and Google's added new stuff.
For over a year. I've had clients been on it for almost 18 months, since March 2022. As the first, well, actually, I even started some before that. And I'm still working with them. So, but they were getting notifications and emails. And this one client, they run 5 sites, and it was on one of them. It took me forever to find which little tick box was not ticked. And Google actually migrated the site for them, even though I told them not to. And I know 100% I had said it because that was an option not to have them do it. So the only positive from my perspective was I got to go delete that account because it had no impact on the actual production one. But I got to go and see what a horrible job Google did in doing these automatic setups.
Well, okay.
So
what kind of horrible job has Google done in doing the automatic setups?
Well, this part of it is just like using Google Assistant. So right away, they put you into how you do your user identity into their, well, they call their default one, where things like Google Signals aren't turned on and all these other things aren't properly configured. But also under the data stream, there are all sorts of events that you can automatically track. And I'm just trying to bring up the names of all of them. But so for example, like obviously page views was automatically turned on. But if you want to track, most people have automatically turned on track outbound clicks. That wasn't enabled. They did not have enabled, automatically track embedded YouTube videos. That wasn't enabled. They did not enable track file downloads. So they put on basically track my page views, track my scrolls. And okay, so that was part of it. And then they gave you one of the changes Google made about 3 months ago, I think it was, that when they asked you, sir, what categorize your business, it decided it would give you a slightly customized interface of which reports you would see. The default one, even though this was a e-commerce site, most of the e-commerce reports were not there. They gave them like the bare bones monetization report, like just the dashboard. It was like atrocious, meaning now I have to go in and add all these other available reports, which are there for you to customize the interface, but why aren't they automatically there? So Google didn't know anything about the businesses, so they gave them basically the minimum report set. And for most businesses, that's just not good enough.
Okay, so now we're here. Saturday is GA4. What should, I guess I got a couple questions. If businesses hadn't gone on it, obviously they got to get GA4 set up like immediately and do it now. But while they're doing setup now, are there other tools, third-party tools? I'm thinking things like Looker Studios that makes dealing with the data you get from GA4 easier, or easier, I guess, to structure in a way that's useful to you?
The answer is yes, no.
Yeah.
As I said, most organizations, they need to go into the GA4 library of reports, look at the reports. I don't know by default how many, probably 50, 60 reports that are available. Say, oh, I like this one, and then add it to your user interface that it's available to you. So for many organizations, just that simple act of reviewing all available reports, saying, oh, I really like this report. This will be helpful for me. And then you just say, I want it in this section of my user interface. Done. It's easy. Now, if you're looking for more complex reporting, using something like any data visualization tool. So yes, Looker Studio is free, and we'll put the caveat these days with anything from Google, sort of. It's far easier to use than this new enhanced feature called Explorer Reports, which I've used, are extremely powerful and are not for the layperson to go in and do anything with. So with Kristine, I will agree that they're a nightmare to work with. So going into Looker Studio, but now once again, you now need to know how to use Looker Studio. But with Looker Studio, accessing your Google Analytics data is fairly simple, but Google has now implemented a token system, and they keep changing how many tokens you get. But every time you connect to your Google Analytics data through Looker Studio requires some tokens. How many? There's no easy way to tell. It's one for the call to your Google Analytics. How many dimensions? How many metrics? Okay, and each one of those uses a different amount of tokens. So I've had, for a while, they had such a limited amount, I would be developing a Looker Studio report for someone, and I'd hit my 30-minute token limit. I'd have to stop working because I'm testing things and refreshing screens, and then come back after 30 minutes and go, okay, I can continue again for another 10, 15 minutes. Okay, I got the report. And then you hit the issue where you have these great Looker Studio reports, and because of the tokens, if it's an organization would say there's 10 people looking at that report once an hour, because maybe whatever you're doing, you can hit your limit and somebody else will not be able to get to it. So it's free, sort of. If you're a one-person operation or you're a one-person manager or something, you should be fine once you create those reports, because they just increased the limits. So I'm grateful I haven't hit my, equivalent of a Twitter jail. You're now in a Looker Studio jail for 30 minutes till your account's refreshed. So it's there, and it'll be the same thing with any BI tool. The API now has severe limits put on it by Google.
Gosh, all I hear is friction, 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 friction.
No, I'm hearing, oh, you want more? Get credit card, credit card, credit card.
Yeah,
you can get more.
saying.
Just cough up money.
Yeah,
that's why I said it's free, sort of.
What? I was gonna say, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
One of the
they're pushing you. They want everyone to move their data to their BigQuery, their big data warehouse, which used to cost a fortune and now is free. You still have to, when you create your account, put down your credit card for micro charges if you happen to incur them. But the technical methodology to getting this actually set up is huge. So it is far beyond the average business owner. And this is where I agree with Kristine. You now all of a sudden need to start bringing in data experts who can write all the SQL code for you on how to process the data that's getting stored. But at a basic level, tying Looker Studio to a BigQuery database and doing fairly standard type of reports isn't such a big deal. You don't have to write these custom codes.
Something that attracted businesses, like millions of businesses, to Google Analytics and Universal Analytics originally was that 4-letter F word. It was free, and it was easy to use, fairly intuitive. Is there any alternatives to Google Analytics 4 out there that might feel more like a Universal Analytics 3 environment? Given that I don't think that data is portable, so I don't know if they'll be able to have that.
No, data is definitely not portable. I've looked at a few. There are a few free products. Once again, it's a learning curve. They do not look like Universal Analytics. They do not look like, they don't function like Universal Analytics. They calculate things differently than Universal Analytics. I'm not going to recommend one over the other. I've looked at a few. I've had clients tell me I'm switching this one. I say, all right, good luck with it. And they get it up and it's fairly simple. And now I'm getting calls from them saying, I need to do this and this. I said with this product, I said, but it doesn't capture that data. So there is no perfect substitution. And yes, that nasty 4-letter word of free and this is the big problem, it wiped out a lot of quality products out of the market that were selling software for $500 for a year's license, $1,000 for a year license. In some cases with like $250, and you installed it on your own server. They're gone. There's no competition. The big competition's Adobe Analytics, and you better have deep pockets and a huge data team to manage it. So that is a problem.
Like you say, on the SES side, though, I do hear people recommend using Fathom and Pickwick, and there's a couple others. Matoma. By the way, Matoma has a funny G4 video if you go to their YouTube site right now.
All right.
And Clicky. So do any of those work? Because most of these people aren't doing massive data analysis.
Right. And if all you care about is tracking traffic from a few different channels and setting up some key conversion points, they're fine. I have clients who are on Shopify, and Shopify has its built-in analytics tool, and you can see your traffic coming in. You can start. But if you're trying to understand how the user navigates through the checkout flow, it's a horrible system. You need to use an advanced analytics product, especially that's developed for e-commerce. So there is is GA4 going to be perfect for every business out there? No. Which one's the best one for your business? I'm not going to tell you. You gave a list of all our good ones, and I had clients who looked at them, and most of them said, I'll stick with GA4. So it's...
Well, here's a kind of a reverse look at the same question. Some analytic trackers out there, I'm kind of looking at you, Instagram, have images that appear in the head section of a website, which will possibly break the head and prevent Google or other search engines from reading important information. And this may be putting on the spot. I don't know if you've had a chance to analyze every analytics program out there, but are there ones out there that you would warn people against for doing things like that, planting little pixels that will mess you up in other ways?
There's I won't warn you against any specific ones. I've had a few clients where they have a dealer network and they have analytics across their dealer network, but then each dealer has semi-autonomy and they drop their own code in, which breaks the overall analytics because their code usurps it and blocks certain scripts, because you might be running through something like Google Tag Manager, a custom JavaScript, and it says, oh, we're going to block JavaScript because it interferes with our code. So the only way is test. And one of the things, though, I'll give you a little bit of a positive with the new Google reporting identity feature of Google Signals. And to quick summary, what Google Signals is, anyone who's ever signed up for a Gmail account or has enabled their own personal email domain, like a corporate email, to become a Google account, is presented with a permission screen to give consent for Google basically to track you based on this, Google account. You can opt out of it and still get your Google account, but I think the numbers are like less than 5% opted out. That's where you can, by the way, get all your demographic data out of that Google Signals. If you have Google Signals running and Google Analytics 4 implemented, and somebody puts a script on that blocks the tracking of cookies, Google will revert and track the user and their behavior through your site through Google Signals. So right away, that I'm not going to say that's a good thing, but it is one of the features of it. And it also allows Google now to track you across devices, because most people don't log out of their Google accounts.
Okay, now, when you say track you, do you mean track me as Jim Hedger? Because I don't think Google is tracking me as an individual, but it's tracking me as user X who does all those things, who's interested in all those things. Would that be more accurate?
No.
Oh,
Google has a user ID for Jim Hedger. It has a way of looking up that user ID and knowing that it is Jim Hedger.
Does any
As
of
a-
that bleed over into GA4 stats or analytics?
Not, well, that's one of the things Google is now
Yeah, but-
hiding that ID. So even if I were to set a record user ID, Google does not make it available as a reportable dimension. But that's one of the things now with their privacy is if I start drilling down, and it assumes if I'm using one of their more advanced reporting identity features, and I say, only show me in my reports, people from Ontario, Canada, and I do not have enough users. Oh, and better yet, somebody who's clicked through a PPC ad, all of a sudden my data gets throttled and I get crap data on screen because Google's saying, ooh, you might be able to figure out that that was Jim Hedger who came to your site. So that's one of the touchy areas is when we start, but that's where if you go and use Looker Studio or you do your queries from something in BigQuery, you can do those drill downs and get your full data. So that's part of where Google's trying to hide that I could isolate it down to Jim Hedger. So if I went really down by IP address, that was part of it. The old Universal Analytics actually had recorded your IP address, even though we had an option for the last 5 years to not. Most sites didn't turn on that feature. So
we're getting close to end of show, so I'm gonna start shooting some rapid fire questions at you.
Sure.
Earlier you mentioned that Google had taken away some features or some reporting metrics that would be found in Universal Analytics. Has Google added stuff that would be of use to people that they should be aware of?
My favorite that they added in, and this is what I mentioned before, where they got rid of bounce rate and they actually hit it, that if you want it now, they brought it back because people complained, is engagement rate. It's a more meaningful, especially for SEOs, especially for PPCs. The engagement rate is probably the most powerful thing they brought in. Once again, I said, as I mentioned before, that someone who landed on a page, spent a minimum of 10 seconds, or started scrolling, or did some trackable event, click play video, whatever it is, click download file, is an engage. So now, not only do we know from PPC how many people click through an ad, but if it was, we used to just get a bounce rate. We don't know what they did. We can, unless you actually set up advanced coding, we can now have an engagement factor, even if I didn't track that they clicked the download button, or we know that they were engaged. So that is probably the most powerful piece they've added in. I would say from that point, and then the new ability to actually completely customize the user interface I'm loving it, and I'm setting that for clients. I warn them, though, when you get a new employee who's going to be used to out of the can GA4 user interface, they're going to go, this is weird. It's different. Well, sometimes different is good. So those are probably the two most powerful things that they've changed in the reporting system.
This morning I was looking at a GA4 graph of user engagement by page, and Google's top 10 fetish. So it had 10 different colored lines on the page, but it was really cool. I could see which of these the top 10 pages in the last 28 days was really getting user engagement. It's kind of sobering when you find out it's only a couple pages out of all the ones that you thought were scoring traffic.
Well, I'm just going to summarize this. This has gone back now about 3 years ago with a client who is essentially a blog site, even though they wouldn't call themselves a blog site. They write articles for the pharmaceutical industry on various ailments, and they're sponsored by the pharmaceutical industry. And of course, have a very lengthy article, and somewhere in there there'd be a link say, for treatment, drugs like X, and they'd have a link off to obviously a pharmaceutical site. And we worked with them on SEO. We were getting them high ranking, high click-through rates, but their bounce rate was like over 90%. Reason? These pages were all over 1,000-word article, posts. Some of them were over 2,000 words. People would read them, they got their answer and leave. So of course they had a bounce rate. Back then, we actually put a timer on it, manually added a scroll tracking, and their bounce rate drop down in some cases to single digits or, at least low teens. And they were thrilled. Now that comes out of the can with GA4.
The ability to make settings.
Right. You're not necessarily going to get a report of how far someone scrolled, but you know that they started scrolling. You know that they actually spent more than 10 seconds on the site. If you want more accurate, you can now, through things like Tag Manager, go back and add the same timers and turn off the default ones that GA comes with, but at least now you're getting an engagement factor. So I find that much more powerful than not knowing what a bounce rate is.
It's good that you mentioned Tag Manager. UA3 was not 100% dependent on Tag Manager, just highly recommended that you install through Tag Manager. Is GA4 100% dependent on Tag Manager?
No, in fact, you can actually do a lot of advanced features without Tag Manager just through the GA4 admin interface. So you can start tracking custom events. Now, once again, most lay people have no idea what a custom event is, but I can, what's showing up in the data layer, all these, techie stuff, but you don't have to have Tag Manager. I still prefer Tag Manager because it gives you much more granular control over what's being collected and being reported. But for the mid-sized company who has a reasonably technical person on board, they don't have to go learn Tag Manager. They can do it all through the GA interface now. They can set up their custom dimensions and then it's custom events based on those.
Okay. People should have gotten on this 18 months ago. And if they didn't get it on it 18 months ago, they should have got on it 12 months ago. And if they didn't do it then, they should have got on it 6 months ago. And a lot of people didn't do it then either. So now we're here. And people are worried that come, I guess, Wednesday, when people actually go back to work, they're going to be, sort of floating in a sea of no data. Alan, you're an expert in doing, I'm not going to say rapid conversions. I don't know if you can do a rapid migration into GA4, but how many guys like you are out there and are you taking emergency cases?
I've been taking emergency cases. I hate to say that. For the past few months, I had someone who actually had a conversion done for them over a year ago, ran it in parallel with the Universal Analytics, just like someone would have recommended them, but the company they hired didn't do things right. And they finally last week started looking at it. So now they're in a panic. So, make sure your date, so yes, there are a couple people out there who are doing emergency conversions, very basic stuff. If it's more advanced, get in line. I'm expecting my phone to go or my email to go crazy on Wednesday, Thursday next week.
Well, I'd imagine it's kind of going crazy already. You expect it to go crazier?
You'd be surprised. For my client base and people I sent warnings and from industries passing my name around, I've been busy. It's when people will log on who ignored all the, the spam attacks from Google about changing over it'll just do it for me. And they're going to log on and go, what's this? I don't have data. I don't know how to use this new one. I expect a lot of them will be calling up and it'll be like, yes, I can go through Google Tag Assistant and get somebody convert. Well, Google will have done it as long as they didn't turn off that feature. But is it right for their business? That there isn't a quick fix. That is actually sitting down with them, talking about what their key measurement points are. Are those the real ones that they need? Are those valuable? And then setting it up to actually track what matters to them, not what matters to 90% of the population on a high level, because that other 10% of factors are unique to your business, and let's get those tracking.
And by the way, make sure to check your Google Analytics. At a client who thought he set up, and this week a message showed up at the top that said they were not completely set up.
Oh, so, I've had a number of them, and I've gone through, and in some cases, I've validated that every tick box has been checked, that it's been completed, and it's still, the message was still on there. So,
here's
as I say, worst rollout of software ever.
If somebody wants to verify it's set up, wouldn't the basic analytic numbers be fairly similar? They should be tracking the number of
plus or minus 10%.
Okay, so that's if you look and your UA3 and GA4 are similar enough, within 10%, it's probably tracking basic data properly.
Correct. It's not, it's anything beyond the basic.
So Wednesday morning, people wake up. As we know, probably a high percentage of people haven't gotten on this like they should have. Wednesday morning, they wake up and they're worried. What's the process going to be like? Will they be able to get their thing fixed? Or should they expect a couple days wait, a couple weeks wait?
It depends. There are people out there, I know, I hate to say it, the kids who work in their, out of their parents' basement, who are doing it dirt cheap, right? But they're going to give you dirt cheap work. Look at your basics up there. I would say it's probably going to take you a couple of weeks to get it up and running. If you want to do it properly and start with the full, let's do a proper measurement plan. As a business, what are your criticals? What are your marketing efforts? How do we want to report on those marketing efforts? What would be a success matrix for that marketing effort? That takes time and planning, which most organizations didn't do under Universal Analytics, because frankly, you couldn't add those custom metrics in easily. Now you can. So there's a lot of opportunity here. Getting the basics up, yeah, that can be done in an hour. Getting it working optimally for you can take days of work.
Okay, so Alan at connectology.com.
Correct.
Okay. If folks, if you're in a bit of a panic, contact Alan. We have gone around full clock. It's top
before
of the.
Before we end, we gotta mention one thing, and then we'll talk about it next week.
What's that?
What's
up?
As of today, Google has announced that once I forget the number of the bill in Canada goes through, the C18, they will no longer be giving any links from search news or discover products to operate to Canadian news sites.
We're going to be talking
about Facebook as well as planning on the same thing.
Facebook, Meta through Facebook and Instagram announced that today as well. We're going to be talking about this next week. Sometime in the autumn, Canada, you're going to get cut off from the big houses, but we'll see how that works out. It's a threat that is not necessarily set in stone. It's more like written in soap. Anyway, Alan, thank you so much for spending time on the show with us.
My pleasure.
I hope that Analyticgedon is very good to you.
It's been good. I hope it continues.
And I hope it's not too hard on the listeners out there. Again, if you've been listening to Webcology, you've been warned for about 18 months now that this is coming. So
and every week for the last two.
And every week for the last two. We've been making.
And if you had Universal Analytics, you've probably been getting an email every day from Google.
Indeed. We've been making fun of this for months, heck. But now it's real. I mean, like you got to do the switch. You got to get into it, and you got to learn the whole new way of relating to this traffic. So it's an adventure. It's kind of neat. And again, we've gone full circle. We got to get it. We're blocking another show from doing its recording. So on behalf of Alan Connect from Connectology and Kristine Schachinger from Sites Without Walls, this is Jim Hedger from Digital Always Media. You've been listening to Webcology on WMR, recorded live to podcast on the 29th of June, 2023. Be well, be kind to each other, rank well, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, guys.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of WebmasterRadio.fm's management or sponsors. Any rebroadcast or redistribution without authorized consent of WebmasterRadio.fm is prohibited.